Hey there, Win Win Nation. Good afternoon. I am Michelle L. Forbes, and it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon with you and for you to join us this afternoon as we sit and have a conversation with our guest for today, Jacquie Abram. Just before we bring her into the studio, I want to share a bit with you about Jacquie. So, Jacquie Abram let's get our help up in here. Jacquie Abram is the international best-selling award-winning author of Hush Money: How One Woman Proved Systematic Racism in Her Workplace and Kept Her Job. She has been featured in Forbes, Yahoo News, CBS News, NCB News, and is an Amazon best-selling author, as well as the recipient of the Reader's Favorite Gold Medal for Social Issues Novels. Before Jacquie began her journey as an author and DEI anti racism consultant, she had a career in higher education that she was very good at, and she enjoyed it. A career that paid her a lucrative income, which, as a single mom of two girls, was the only income that allowed her to not only provide for her family, but to also be able to pay her bills. A career that spanned nearly 2 decades and by any measure should have been a successful career, but it wasn't. Because throughout her career, she experienced racism in the workplace, not the kind that you see a lot in the movies, books, and TV shows about racism that occurred decades ago during a time when it was more overt and easily spotted. But the kind of racism that is more covert, hidden, and harder to prove. After Jackie's career was derailed multiple times by multiple employers, and she suffered racial trauma that was so severe she considered homicide and suicide. Did you guys hear that? Homicide and suicide. So she was planning to end it all. She pulled herself out of corporate America, wrote Hush Money, a book inspired by true events and co authored by her daughters, self published, and sold it from the trunk of her car in pop up shops and parks. Today, today, Hush Money continues to be read in numerous countries across the world and has achieved the following. Hold on tight to your chairs, guys. Number one, international best-selling, award-winning book featured in Forbes. Number one bestseller, Amazon. Number one best eye-opening African American women's fiction, Goodreads Listopia. Number one in books to build your social justice literacy, racism, Goodreads Listopia. Number one in Black female protagonists, Goodreads Listopia. Number one in contemporary women's fiction, Goodreads Listopia. Number one in mixed race representation, Goodreads Listopia. Number one in strong and inspiring heroines, female protagonists, Goodreads Listopia. Number one fresh speakers, Goodreads Listopia. Gold medal recipient for social issues novels, readers' favorite. And number three in top African American Christian fiction. Hush Money is much more than just another book about systematic racism. For employees, it's a roadmap, a survival guide for fighting racism and other forms of discrimination in the workplace. For employers, it's a compass for finding and identifying covert racism in the organization. For allies who have never experienced racism. It's a powerful way to step into the shoes of a racial discrimination victim. Win-Win Nation, please help me with great delight and pleasure and honor. Welcome, Jacquie Abraham.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's Abram, so just think of Abram from the Bible, whose name later became Abraham.
Abram.
Abram.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to have you here, Jacquie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And as we start off, I want to, as I was getting myself ready, I said, the first word I'd love to say to you is, Jacquie, thank you. Thank you for standing. Thank you for not going ahead with the plans. And even as I was getting ready, the thought came to me, you're here today because of that one call from your daughter. Because you were so entranced that if that call didn't come and shake you out of the trance,
Right.
we probably wouldn't have had a hush money.
That's
And
right.
the numbers, the numerous persons that you would have helped along with your daughters would not have been part of your history and legacy.
Yes. You are absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. And it's amazing for me as each year goes by and I celebrate my birthday, which is on New Year's Eve. I actually reflect back on that moment. And I've always celebrated my birthdays along with the rest of the world because it is New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
But there's something special about celebrating each birthday after that pivotal moment of being on the verge of committing both homicide and suicide. So I'm just very grateful, that God intervened when he did through my youngest daughter. And that as part of that process, I was able to turn all that pain into power and am now helping, employees and employers alike.
Awesome. And would you say that hush money somehow got conceived on the beach shore when that call came and you realize this is happening to my daughter? And as you later learned, daughters, I've got to stand up and do something about it. Would you say that somehow, without your knowing, as
Right.
with women, usually when we get conceived, we have no clue until the time
Right.
to come. Would you say that that is where hush money was conceived?
I would say it's not exactly where hush money was conceived, but if anyone knows me, they know that my two daughters are my pride and my joy, and they are my entire world, along with my grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so when I got the call from my daughter as I was standing on the edge of Salt Creek Beach, just, mesmerized by the water, and I'll tell you, the call of the sea is very strong when you're in despair. And so, the sea is calling out to me literally. And I am so into my own pain and into, just ready to give up that when that call came through, I stepped out of myself for just a moment to take that call. And when I heard my daughter screaming and absolutely hysterical, I snapped back to reality in that moment because my youngest baby needs me. And as she's going on and telling me what these people are doing to her, just the most heinous things that you can possibly imagine. It was enough for me to pack up that day and just forget about whatever I had going on. I was in California at the time. My daughter was in Colorado. I packed up, came back to Colorado, and then immediately helped her deal with her situation. So in that moment, my focus immediately shifted from me to my daughter, and I made everything about her. It wasn't until she started describing everything that was going on that I was able to draw a parallel and say, they're attacking her in the same way I've been attacked my entire career.
Mm.
And so that's when I went to my oldest daughter, Deborah, and
Mm-hmm.
I said, Deborah, are you experiencing any racism in the workplace? Because, again, they're in Colorado. I'm in California. My youngest daughter has always been vocal with, screaming out to me as soon as she needs something. But my oldest daughter,
Mm.
she didn't want me to worry because I'm too
Mm.
far away. So she would just put on the smile, that mask, that we hide our pain behind.
Yes.
And she would say, "Oh, everything's great, Mom, everything's fine." But now that I'm face to face with her and I'm asking her, "Are you experiencing racism? Are any of these things happening to you?" My oldest daughter broke down and she said, "I didn't want to tell you, Mom, because as Black women, everyone thinks we're supposed to be strong, that we have no emotions, that we can just handle everything. And so I didn't want you to worry. I tried to handle it myself." And when my oldest daughter said that to me, and then she started describing what she was going through, which was absolutely horrifying, that was the catalyst for me. I said, okay, the three of us are experiencing the same thing. And if we're not careful, my babies are going to end up in the same desperate position that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
So then we expanded it. How many other people are going through this? This is two generations of women in the
Yes.
same family who are experiencing the same type of targeting. So we expanded it to extended family. We extended that outreach to friends. And then we started talking to strangers. And 95% of the Black folks that we talked to,
Mm.
we were all experiencing the same thing. I mean, it was just absolutely mind boggling.
Yes.
And that's where Hush Money was birthed, because I
Mm.
knew that of all these people that are suffering, and even though I was suffering too, okay,
Yes.
because it's painful what we go through.
Absolutely.
But let me tell you one thing about me and my daughters: we never walk away empty handed, ever.
Oh, come on. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, we don't believe in walking away empty handed. And there was
Yes.
something we knew
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of folks didn't know about: how to fight back against the new
Mm.
modern day racism, which is not easy to spot, like you said. It's
Yeah.
not overt, it's covert,
Yeah.
it's hidden, it's
Yeah.
harder to prove. You
Yeah.
can't see it, you can't even tell if it's racism.
Mm-hmm.
We knew how to fight that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where Hush Money came from, because too many of our people walk away empty
And
handed. And
yes.
the problem with that, Michelle, is, and this is what I say all the time: you ran from this job over here because you were Black. And when you ran over to this job, guess what?
You're still Black.
You were still Black. So since you know the same thing's going to happen wherever you run,
Mm-hmm.
deal with the devil here first,
Absolutely.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Don't walk away empty handed, because they're going to put you through pure hell, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need that buffer to allow you time to heal
Yes.
before you go to the next hell.
Yes. Yes. Mm. As you spoke and you mentioned you and your daughters know how to, the two words that popped up is strategy and
Yes.
wisdom.
Yes.
As you maneuver, you ladies have to put those two to play concerning all the content, all the evidence, strategy,
Yes.
wisdom, and a third one, timing.
Yes.
Timing. Yeah.
There is there are so many mistakes, sadly, that our people make when they're experiencing racism in the workplace. And so what we do in Hush Money is we lay out effective ways to fight back, survive that battle,
Mm-hmm.
and not walk away empty handed. But the strategies that are outlined in Hush Money, most of them are things people would not think of in a million years to do.
Mhm.
They're unconventional methods. So,
Mhm.
let me just kind of give you an example of that.
Is-
And there are many different strategies that all work together to get you what you want in that end game, which is not to walk away empty handed. Okay. So, the very first thing that I use, a model that I use and my daughters uses, the E in email stands for evidence. So, you are creating an arsenal of weapons, okay?
I
You
love it.
have to go into that job, hoping for the best, but preparing from day one for the worst. And one of the tools that you're putting in this arsenal of tools that you are creating is email. Email is a powerful, powerful weapon. And let me just tell you how it works. Oftentimes, when you are working in a company, in the beginning, things are good, right? Most times things are good in the beginning. And when things are good, people are telling you what a great job you're doing. They're saying, Michelle, great job on that presentation you gave this morning.
Yes.
Okay. They're walking down the hall with you, giving you kudos for, a deal that you closed, right?
Mhm.
But the problem is a lot of those kudos, a lot of those accolades, a lot of those compliments are verbal. So when the crap starts, when the racism starts,
Mhm.
and the first thing they do is try to paint you as an incompetent employee,
Yes.
if you don't have tangible proof over a period of time that
Mhm.
no, I'm not incompetent,
Mhm.
over this series of time, you were telling me what a great job I was doing, then it comes down to their word against yours, unless you've weaponized email.
Yes.
So let's go back to that example. You
Yes.
and I are walking down the hall, Michelle.
Yes.
You say, Jackie, great job on that presentation you gave this morning.
Mhm.
When I hear that verbal compliment spill from your lips, I get giddy on the inside. I'll be honest. I get giddy on the inside and I almost freeze in my tracks because I'm going to thank you and then I'm going to run back to my office. I'm
Mhm.
going to open up an email.
Yep.
In the subject, I'm going to put thank you. And
Yep.
then I'm going to say, hi, Michelle. Just a quick note to thank you for the compliment you gave me as we were walking down the hall this morning
Yep.
on the presentation I gave.
Mhm.
It meant so much to me. They receive that email and it's harmless. Most times they'll respond and say, no problem.
Mhm.
Sometimes they won't respond at all. But
Mhm.
you've got this now tangible piece of evidence that
Evidence.
on this date, at this time, I was doing a good job. And
Yes.
if you collect that type of evidence when they're giving you these verbal compliments, it
Mhm.
really tells a powerful story about your performance, especially when, let's say, it's performance review time, and now you're not getting the rating that you thought you would get, or you're
Mhm.
not getting the merit increase that you thought you would get, and they're coming up with all these issues that you need to work on.
Mhm.
That's where this is valuable. Now, the other way email is weaponized is when the racism starts and they start telling you things and doing things to you that you know are quite right. This is where the uncomfortable piece starts, but you have to attack the uncomfortable pieces. Let
Mhm.
me give you an example. There's an employee that I worked with whose boss told her, no one wants her in their department because she's an emotional Black woman who causes trouble. Okay. This is a verbal conversation.
Mhm.
She goes back after she calls me and tells me what happened in the meeting. I instruct her to go back to her office, send an email that says, okay, recap of our conversation this morning. you know, Dear, whatever his name is, I'll just use Joe.
Mhm.
Dear Joe, you know, during our meeting in your office, you said that I was an emotional Black woman
Yes.
that no one wants in their department. Can you help me understand where this is coming from? Can you shed some light? Now, he gets the email and he's like, Come in, let's talk about it," because he doesn't want anything written in an email. But
Mhm.
now you've got this piece of evidence that on this day,
Yes.
this time,
Yes.
this is what was said to you, and that's powerful. Now, after a while, your boss will realize you're collecting evidence on him, and so he will tell you to stop sending him emails. What do you do when that happens? You go back to your office and you open up an email.
I love it.
Yes, so that's just one strategy.
Yeah.
One of the things that breaks my heart when I get people calling me from just all over the place, asking for my help in dealing with what they're experiencing. Things for these people, get so bad as they always do. I'm classic proof of that.
Mhm.
That they're suffering, emotional, mental, physical trauma.
Mhm.
And they make the mistake in thinking that if I go on medical leave, if I go on
Mhm.
FMLA,
Mhm.
okay, which is a medical leave here in the States,
Yeah.
if I go on medical leave, that'll give me time to breathe. And then maybe when I go back to work,
Mhm.
things will be better.
Mhm.
But that's not what happens. And what I tell them when they call me and they said, I came back from medical leave and then, a couple of months later, I was fired. And I said, well, that's because when you went on medical leave,
You
you
were
gave them the quiet time that they needed
to
to
strategize.
finish setting you up. Okay.
Mm.
So when you came back, their work was done in setting you up. So medical leave is also a powerful weapon that you can use.
Mhm.
Okay, but you need to use it to put a wall of protection between you and that employer. So when you return from medical leave, they are afraid to fire you
Mhm.
because you've created a wall of protection that is so big, so strong, and so tight, they wouldn't dare cross it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what my book shows you how to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. They,
Yes.
they would be fearful of the backlash that comes with that.
Oh,
Should
yes, yes. So they won't fire you when you return from medical leave if you put this wall up. And
yeah.
again, my book shows you how to create that wall. Um,
Yes.
Another mistake that a lot of our people sadly make when they are dealing with racism in the workplace
Mhm.
is they think that HR in a lot of cases is
Mhm.
actually there to protect the employee. And
Mhm.
in good companies, okay, I love HR in good companies that don't tolerate racism
Yes.
because HR can be a powerful support system.
Yes.
But when you are dealing with an organization that is allowing racism to flourish, okay,
Mhm.
it's a company that tolerates racism and you are experiencing it. HR is not your friend.
Mhm.
HR is there for the employer and to protect the employer.
Mhm.
So, if you are someone who's experiencing racism, the worst thing you can do is rely on HR. What you do is you collect all of the evidence. And again, my book shows you how to collect evidence that's already there and
Yes.
how to create evidence that doesn't exist. And then
Mhm.
when you've collected all of that, you don't go to HR, okay? Because usually HR is down at this level
Yeah.
working with the racist leader
Mhm.
who has targeted you. And because of his influence and power and authority in the organization, he's inspired all these people around you, including HR, your own employees, other Black people,
Mhm.
people in other departments to all work together to conspire with him and target you. So when that happens, you don't want to make HR the person you trust. You
Mhm.
want to collect all of this information.
Mhm.
You want to write an ironclad discrimination complaint that contains all the keywords, because it has to be ironclad, contains all the keywords that you need in order to prove what you are experiencing, and
Mhm.
then you jump over absolutely everybody's head. I mean, everybody's head. You go to the parent company, if there's a parent company, you
Mm,
copy the board of directors, and you
mhm,
send this to the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the VP, everybody.
mhm.
And then you also copy your tormentors on the email to let them know that you've jumped way over their head, because there's something special about putting the fear in the racists that have been putting the fear in you.
You come on.
I get a giddy feeling when that happens.
Come on. Mm, mm, mm. Yep, I love it. Just before we go on, I want to just give a shout out to our viewers. And after that, we're just going to take a quick break. So, Michelle Mills, my namesake, Michelle says, wow, we have the same birthday. Woohoo! So you share the same
I
birthday
love it.
with Michelle. And guess what? As I listened to you said you are New Year's Eve. Guess what, Jackie?
What?
Happy New Year's Day.
That's so cool. I love it. I love it.
Yes, yes, indeed. And we have Elsie who's tuning in from the UK. But everyone, Donald, Michelle Mills, Holiday,
Yeah.
let's get the help up in there. Holiday Adventures, Laura, Harry, it's a pleasure. Gareth, my beautiful husband, Tasha, it's so beautiful to have you guys here. Alicia, to have you guys on board and just tuning in.
And can I just say something really quickly?
Please do.
Um, the UK was the second, and I have a lot of readers in the UK that I'm just so grateful for. They
Mm,
were the second country to put me on the number one Amazon bestsellers list. The
wow.
first country that put me on the number one Amazon's bestsellers list was Canada. And so I just want to give some love to the UK and to Canada.
Yep, yep, yep. That's so, so, so awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you to the Canadians, like
Yes,
right here
thank
where
you.
I'm at in Toronto, Canada. And thank you to the UK, the British. Yep. It was
Yes,
just last night, our family and I was speaking. We were saying, we want to get a British passport so we could travel the world without having
yes,
to apply for visas. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Especially that
I
we're
would,
talking about
I would
Britain.
love to show up there with a trunk load of books.
Yes. It may just happen, Jackie. It
Yes,
may
yes.
just happen. So
Mhm.
just before we continue, we're going to do a quick break,
Okay.
guys, and we ask you just to tune in. I'm going to share with you my first book that I wrote recently. I Am Loved and Affirmed Gratitude Journal. Yep. Thank
I
you.
love it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
Mhm,
you. It's really beautiful. Been blessing me and blessing quite a number of folks. But
mhm.
just before we continue, Jackie, you shared on like just that scenario. You're walking in the hallway and your coworker would have said to you, or senior would have said to you, I love your presentation. What
Yes.
do? You go in the office and you type your email. I
Mhm.
thought to myself, out of take it, I would pull his tongue, so to speak. Sometimes the old folks says, pull your tongue by saying, what part of my presentation struck you the most? Or yeah, yeah, love
And
it.
see, I'll just tell you, when you're trying to collect evidence, you want to make it nice and easy. So, yes, get what you can from that, put it in the email.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, your goal is to document that compliment. And
yes.
Michelle, let me just share this real quick. This is what my book looks like for anyone who hasn't read it. It's actually a two-book series. So, this is Hush Money: How
Yes.
One Woman Proved Systemic Racism in Her Workplace and Kept Her Job.
Mm,
The sequel to this is called Hush Money: The Cost of Being Black in Corporate America.
mhm.
Together, they tell a very provocative, explosive story that just grips you from beginning to end while
Yes.
giving you a full blown strategy on
Yeah.
what you can do to protect yourself from the racism fight back and walk away on your terms. Don't walk away empty-handed, okay? That's how I feel in terms of just our people. Stop walking away empty-handed, because wherever you go, you are Black, and the chances of you experiencing the same thing repeatedly is high. So don't walk away empty-handed.
Yes. Even as we're engaging in this interview, Jackie, in my mind, I'm an educator of over 20 years.
Mm-hmm,
And for the greater portion of that, it would have been, I'm Caribbean born, it would have
mm-hmm,
been in the Caribbean. But so Jamaican born, did my certification, teacher certification university. The first job was in another island. Met my husband here, went back to Jamaica, got married, but then we lived in St. Kitts and Nevis.
mm-hmm.
Most of my students would have to travel because there was no, at the time when I started, there was no universities on the island. It's pretty small. So most
Yeah.
of them would have traveled to the US
Okay.
to engage in studies. And as we're engaging, my mind just keeps going back to them. And even those now who young people from the Caribbean, and not only St. Kitts and Nevis, but other Caribbean islands,
Mm-hmm.
that that they will come across this video, because I believe it would kind of like prepare them, because I would have traveled to the US, I would have traveled to the UK, and I would have experienced racism. And I was like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like day to day, day after day, going into work and experiencing that, because some of the students from the Caribbean, they do go to study, but they get a job and they stay there. And I
Yes.
believe that through this video, through as you are sharing through your journey, that you will somehow be pouring into the Caribbean folks as well, because
Mm-hmm.
as you experience it in America, it's
Yes.
diluted when it comes down to the Caribbean. As I
Mm.
shared within your bio, it comes to us as what is seen in the movies and the books
Yes.
and the TV shows, not the real deal.
Right. Not the real deal.
Not the real deal. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I think that Hush Money has just done so well and has just taken off with wings and done things that I never even thought was possible, to be honest with you, because I was in a very dark place mentally
Mhm.
when I wrote Hush Money with
Mm.
my daughters. And I literally took all of the pain and the trauma that I had suffered over almost 20 years of trying to make it in higher education.
Mhm.
And, someone being exceptional, that you're ambitious, that you are good at your job, but
Mhm.
you keep getting set up and you keep getting derailed. And so, it takes a toll on you emotionally, mentally, physically.
Yeah.
But in all of that, I really wanted to, after I found out what was going on with my daughters and what was going on with everyone else, I really wanted to help our people not only validate what they were experiencing, because when I was dealing with covert racism, because it's hidden and
Mhm.
it's harder to prove, and you can't really tell if you're dealing with racism, it's actually more sinister than someone just overtly being racist, because at least if it's overt and easy to see, you know what you're dealing with.
Mhm.
When it's hidden and it's harder to prove and you can't tell what you're dealing with,
Yes.
it really damages you
Mhm.
psychologically.
Mhm.
So as I was thinking about writing Hush Money and asking myself, what do I want the readers to get out of this?
Mhm.
I wanted to, number one, validate that what they're experiencing is not in their head.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example of what I mean by that.
Please.
One type of covert racism is something I call the silent sabotage. Okay. So, this is what happens in the silent sabotage. By the point in your career, you realize that, you're reporting to a racist, or you're just dealing with so many things that you haven't quite identified that it's racism,
Mhm.
but you're being harassed, you're being bullied, you're being targeted, you are under duress, you are under stress, and you are just suffering. But in my case, for example, I'm a single mom, I'm mom and dad. And this job that I have that pays me six figures pays me well enough to provide for my children. So I'm not so willing to just walk away from that job, okay,
Yes.
as I'm going through pure hell and suffering. And a
Yes.
lot of people, they say that, they say, you know, the company is paying me well, they're giving me good benefits, it's just this manager. If I could just get away
Mhm,
from this manager and maybe transfer to another department, that I'll be okay.
mhm,
So what do? We go to the company intranet, we look at the open positions that are being posted internally,
mhm,
we find a position that we know we're qualified for and
mhm,
that will get us away from this racist,
mhm,
okay, and
mhm,
into another department where I may have a chance to succeed. And then we say, okay, I want to apply for this position.
mhm,
Now, the problem though is in most companies, okay, in most companies,
mhm,
before you can apply to move into a different department, if you're hired,
mhm.
you have to, number one, tell your boss that you want to transfer, you want to apply for this open position.
Yep.
And number two, your boss has to approve you applying to
Yep.
move. Okay.
Yeah.
So to your face, your boss says, "Oh, Michelle, you would be brilliant in that other department. You've
Yeah.
got all the right skills. You're going to be great." Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, you have my approval.
Yeah.
And so you are like so relieved that your boss gave the approval.
Mhm.
You quickly apply, you know that you're qualified, and you believe that your chances are high
Yes.
in getting into this department away from this racist leader.
Yes.
Here's where the silent sabotage comes into play. What you don't realize is as soon as you went and applied for that position, your boss had a conversation with the hiring manager in
Mm,
the department you're trying to get into.
mm,
That conversation was either in person, it was over the phone, it was in an email, it was through text, it was through Skype, but somehow a conversation occurred. And during that conversation, your boss said to this hiring manager, you know, because you and I have such a good relationship, I just want to give you a heads up about Michelle. You know, now you can interview her if you want, but I just wanted to let you know because I respect you. There are some issues with Michelle. You know,
mhm,
she's loud. She's always disrupting the team.
mhm.
She's a bit of a troublemaker. You know, can't get her to come to work on time, let alone meetings. And so she's giving her all this negative yah
Yes.
about you. Okay,
Yes.
and then you don't get hired and you are applying internal position after internal position
Yes. Yes.
and no one will hire you. That is why. It's because your boss is silently sabotaging you.
Mm,
Now most people would ask, well, how do you know, Jackie? How do you know? If it's silent, how do you know that that's happening? Okay, so let me just explain really quick. In
mm,
my career in higher education, I was making six figures because I was the senior leader in the other department that Black folks were trying to transfer into to get away from their racist bosses.
mhm.
Okay. And after they applied, that racist boss, you came on over to see me and had a conversation telling me about all the problems with the employee that's trying to get into my department.
Wow.
That's how I know.
Wow. You have first-hand
Yes.
experience.
Yes. Okay.
Wow.
And that's just one example of how covert racism works.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't see it, you can't prove it, it's hidden, but that's what's happening.
Yes. Yes. You often say that covert racism kills career of one. As I read Hush Money One, and as I
Mhm,
have heard your testimony in terms of you were right by the shore, you were ready to end it all. You
mhm,
had a plan how to kill your employer and
mhm.
just cut everything.
Yes.
My mind expanded to, does it only kill career? Do, does are there undocumented cases or unknown cases where it actually killed individuals?
So I can honestly say I don't have any statistical data in terms of how many people actually went through with killing themselves after experiencing this horrific level of racism. But
Mhm.
what I can tell you is covert racism kills our careers in the workplace a lot like racist police officers kill our people in our
Whoa.
communities. The methods are actually very, very similar.
Mm,
And if you want, I can give you an example.
please.
Okay. If you remember the brutal killing of George Floyd,
Yes.
okay, George Floyd was brutally murdered in his community by a racist police officer,
Yes.
Derek Chauvin, okay?
Yes.
But Michelle, here's the thing, okay? Although Derek Chauvin was the person who carried out the act of killing George in his community, he was not alone.
Mm,
He had help. There were three other police officers on the scene that day.
mhm,
There was an Asian man, a person of color, who
mhm,
was standing up and created a wall, a barrier of protection between the people on the sidewalk who were watching and screaming in horror, seeing what's going on as Derek Chauvin is actively killing George, okay?
mhm.
And Derek Chauvin as he's actively killing George. So there's this wall of protection, this barrier.
Yes.
The people on the sidewalk, they know it's wrong. They're crying, they're screaming, they're begging for him to stop. But not one person gets off of that sidewalk to go intervene and help because they were afraid of what would happen to them if that racist leader or
Mhm,
any of those other people who are abetting and who are helping him were to turn their targets on them. So
mm,
they watched a murder taking place and just were fearful of
mm,
actually physically intervening. But in addition to those people standing on the sidewalk watching, and this officer who's created the barrier of protection, there was another officer who was physically holding his legs down. So he's got his body weight on George. There was a black officer who had his knee in George's back. So he's got his body weight on him. And then you've got Derek Chauvin, who's got his knee on George's neck.
mm,
So you've got three grown men who've got their full body weight on George, and
mhm,
they're rendering him completely helpless and powerless to defend himself as he's being killed.
mhm,
Now, the reason this is important, Michelle, is because of the four officers, okay, that were there on that scene,
mhm,
Derek Chauvin was the leader. He was the most senior officer who had the power, the influence, and the authority. So when he led, he inspired the other folks, the black guy and the Asian person of color as well, to conspire with him. And
mhm,
they all worked together
mhm,
to kill George in his community.
mhm,
Now, if you take the scenario where they kill us in our community and you move it on over here to the workplace, you are a black person. You are working in your job. And yes, you've got some bias going on around you. You've got the person over here who doesn't like the soul food you brought for lunch because it smells up the break room. Okay.
mm,
And you've got the person over here who doesn't think your braids are professional. Okay. But even though these things are annoying and sometimes painful, that's not what kills your career in the workplace. What kills your career in the workplace is the racist leader who's just like Derek Chauvin. He's in a position of power,
yes.
influence, and authority.
Yes.
He's the most senior leader or one of the most senior leaders in that organization.
Yes.
And when he notices you and he starts targeting you, like I said earlier, he
Yes.
inspires everybody to conspire with him.
Mhm,
HR, other people of color,
Yes.
Black people, your
Yes.
own employees.
Yes.
And before you know it, you are being set up.
Mm,
Your career is being derailed as they paint you as incompetent.
mm,
In my case, they tried to set me up for harassment, me harassing somebody.
mm.
Okay. And they're all working together to kill your career in the workplace like
Yes.
they kill us in our community.
Yes.
Both scenarios end in different types of death. In the community, it's permanent. But
Yes.
in the workplace, the trauma is repeated over and over again
Yes.
as you run from company to company looking for a
Mm,
place where you can not only survive working while Black, but thrive.
yes.
But the challenge is, like I always say, you ran from here because you were Black. And when you ran over here, guess what? Yep, you're
Yeah.
still Black.
Yeah. Yeah. Even as you share that, one of the reasons why I thought about, does it also kill like the individual, the body?
Hmm.
And it's not documented, it's not known. Because when I read and I was reading on the intense effect that the trauma of being in the environment and working with the folks that Ebony found herself in Hush Money.
Yes.
One, and even as you're talking just now, Jackie, I'm thinking to myself, had she not run to the doctor, first call her sister to come and stay here with mom who's doing chemotherapy, had she
Hmm.
not run to the doctor and just
Yes.
like, okay, I'm gonna just try to be strong and try to, could that possibly have gone to lead to death? Because it was a lot of symptoms that her body was just screaming out, I am stressed.
Yes.
Mm,
Well, even if it wasn't an immediate death, there is documented statistical data and a history of women, increased fibroids from the level of stress that
mm,
you are undergoing,
mhm,
hair loss,
mm,
weight gain, depression,
mhm,
suicidal thoughts. Remember,
mhm.
in my case, I was a very strong, confident woman who knew she was exceptional. There was no imposter syndrome in
Yes,
me.
yes,
Okay. I was a Wonder Woman.
yes.
Okay.
Come
I
on,
was a 6 foot tall Janet Jackson lookalike.
come on.
And I was
Come-
confident.
Yeah,
Okay. There
yeah,
was no imposter syndrome. I knew my value and I knew what I was capable of.
absolutely.
But that level of trauma,
Mm,
it broke me.
mm,
And it broke me to the point over nearly 20 years of almost killing my boss, because my boss is actually lucky.
mhm,
She's alive today.
mhm.
Okay. And then almost killing myself. And so you have to ask yourself, how did someone so ambitious, so exceptional, so confident get to that point?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's because of the damage, the
Yes,
racial trauma, the damage to you psychologically,
yes.
emotionally,
Mhm,
physically. And you don't ever get a break from the trauma because every day
mhm.
there's a new attack.
Yeah.
Okay. You are constantly fighting for your career life against more than one person who's
Mhm,
all working together.
mhm,
But see, that's why Hush Money is doing so well. It's
mm,
not just a story that actually helps you see and feel and smell our circumstances in a real and authentic way. It
yes,
is written raw,
yes,
okay? It's raw.
yes.
It's very
It is.
relatable,
It
yes, because
is.
it's raw,
It is.
but
Yeah.
it also empowers you. So by the time you
Yes.
finish book one, you are empowered.
Yes.
And there are so many women and men who contact me and said, I'm ready to fight.
Wow.
I'm ready to do this. I'm done suffering in silence.
Mm,
I'm ready to fight.
mm,
And that's what Hush Money does. It empowers you,
mm,
it emboldens you, and it teaches you
mm.
how to fight back on that same covert,
Yep.
hidden level,
Yep.
okay, that is being done to you. They
Yep.
don't know you're fighting back. They can't see what you're doing.
Yep.
Because they can't see it, they're not prepared for how you hit them. And
Yes.
when you do come forward and you're ready for what I call the coup de grace, okay,
Mhm. Come
which
on.
is the killing blow to their career,
Yep.
okay,
Hmm.
they don't know how to deal with it
Yes.
because their hate is fueling what they're doing, but strategy is fueling what you're doing. And it's
Yes.
a strong strategy.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Mm. Wow. An hour is just not enough.
I
Yeah.
know it goes by fast.
Just before we take a quick break, when we come back from the break, Jackie, I want for folks to know she's working on book three. Yeah,
Yes,
book three is
yes,
being developed,
yes.
and we want her to give us some insights on what to expect from book three.
Okay.
Not yet picked up book one or book two, or if you're
Yes.
listening to this live or on the replay and you're hearing for the first time about this Hush Money and Jackie Abram, please, it's like a must read for all of them, even book three, without me even seeing anything. It's
Yes.
a must read. And as I read, I find just like what Jackie just shared, it's an empowerment tool, strategy, weapon.
Yes.
Jackie said something just now that several women and men would have reached out to her and said, I'm ready to fight.
Yes.
Not sure where you're at, what you've been experiencing, whether you're live or whether you catch this video on the replay. But
Hmm.
can I tell you, this young woman, Jackie Abram, you can reach out to her. Her daughters, the team, they are building a legacy, that a fortress
Yes.
that persons of color who would have experienced racism can run to and said, help, I'm ready. Reach
Yes.
out. Around this video, you will see her contact email. Go ahead, reach out to her, make
Hmm.
a book, a strategy session, and get your life, which is not only you, but as you hear Jackie said, her girls. This is
Hmm.
not only about her, but it's our girls, the legacy of our children, that we have to make sure we stand firm
Yes.
and set an example for them and for
Yes.
so many others who are looking on you and you haven't even a clue that they're looking on you, but they're looking at your life and taking
That's right.
examples and tips from your lives on how they're to go about their life. So
Hmm.
let's take a quick break. I'm going to share my promo again with you on my first book, I Am Loved and the Firm Gratitude Journal. Gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions that unlocks the door to
Yes.
greatness.
I love it. I love it.
Yep. Just in a moment, we'll be right back at you. I love to dance.
Oh, I
Love
love it. I love it. Ah.
Jackie. It's been such an honor, and it's been my deep pleasure of just sitting down and having a conversation with you. And again, for folks who are listening, our prayer is that you will be empowered. For those who would have been disheartened and somehow discouraged and feel like you have no hope, our prayer is that you be empowered. For those whose voices have been muted
Yes.
and have been just so silenced, we
Yes.
pray like Maya Angelou that you rediscover your voice
Hmm.
as you tune into this video. And as you pick up your copies of Hush Money, I'll share the links just now where you can, on Amazon, where you can go ahead and pick up your copy for both one and two. And we expect pretty soon, three, that you'll be empowered and you find your voice again. Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Jackie, please share with us what can we expect in book three? And also, what are you working on now? What's your next steps? As much as you could share, because we know you can't release everything, but as much as you're
Well,
ready to share, please do.
all right, so let me just tell you really quickly about book two first.
Yeah.
So, the sequel to Hush Money again is called Hush Money: The Cost of Being Black in Corporate America. I try to keep a stock of books here with me at home, but they sell as fast as I can get them in. So,
Right.
I don't have a book to show you, but I promise you, these two books will grip you, from start to finish. They will empower you, they will teach you, and they will take you on a roller coaster ride of emotions. The books are written raw, like I said. I refused to have an editor touch the book because I wanted it written the way that I was feeling at the time. Interestingly enough, couldn't get a publisher for the books. They said there wasn't a market for this type of book. So we self-published. And Michelle, the cost to self-publish my books, each one was $22, and that was just to have the book cover made. So we
Wow.
invested a total of $22
Wow.
into self-publishing.
Wow.
7 months later, they were all over the world in many different countries. So right now, I'm proud to say that Hush Money has really just opened a whole new world for me and my daughters to turn our pain into power for others to learn from. So I'm happy to announce that as of right now, we have helped 8 people obtain six-figure settlements without an attorney in
Woo!
record time in less than 5 months. And in
Mm.
one case, we even got him his job back, a $3 an hour raise, and so many other things. So it's exciting
Yeah.
when you are able to help someone navigate what
Mhm.
they are dealing with in the workplace, help them write the emails, help them collect the evidence, help them write the discrimination complaints, and then be there as they negotiate. Because if you use an attorney, they're not going to do that level of detailed work that we do.
Yes.
And by the time we do the detailed work, you don't really need an attorney to negotiate. So you are empowered, and that means your settlement does not have to be split with anyone except for us.
Come on.
And we're going to take a little bit less than what the attorney does. So in most cases, attorneys will take 33 to 43%, whether or not it goes to having a court date established.
Mhm.
What me and my girls do is we only take between 10% and 20%. And
Wow.
it's only if you get a settlement based on all the work that we've done to
Wow.
prepare you to get that settlement.
Wow.
So we do amazing work, and it really pays off for people who work with us.
Yeah.
For employers, I go into employer organizations
Mhm.
and they want to see what they can't see. They said, "We heard you say covert racism is hidden. We've read your books. How can we find the covert racism in our organizations? Because we cannot fight what we can't see." And so I work with employers, helping them identify and protect themselves and prevent covert racism from occurring, while also educating them on the other important elements of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, like intersectionality, sexism, um, how sexism and race intersect,
Mm.
systemic racism and the layers.
Mhm.
So we give employers a very well-rounded look
Yes.
at diversity, equity, and inclusion, putting a strong component on
Yes.
covert racism, the career killer.
Yes. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Mm.
So in book two, like I said, book two continues where book one left off. It
Yes.
tells the rest of the story. I
Mm.
don't want to give any spoilers in case you have any listeners who haven't read book one, but I can promise you they're provocative, they're explosive. Ebony is not someone who doesn't make mistakes along the way. She's
Mm.
human. Sometimes she makes mistakes. Sometimes she finds herself in hot mess situations. But she's very honest and authentic with
Mhm.
sharing that with you and what she dealt with and how she dealt with it.
Yes.
And book three is coming. It will be released towards September.
Awesome.
Book three is called Hush Money: How One Woman Turned Black Pain in the Workplace into Power.
Mm.
And the story just continues because sadly, for Black people, racism is not a one time thing. We
Yes.
don't get a badge once we're attacked that says, "Don't attack me," because I've
Yes.
been through this already. It's
Yes.
not a one time thing, it's repeated.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yes.
I trust, we trust, and we hope that from today's show from Jackie would have shared from her heart, that you would have been blessed, that there was a nugget that you would have received. And I recall it is Holiday Adventures says, I will take with me E for evidence. So
There
you've
you go.
got a
The
nugget.
E in email really does stand for evidence.
Yep. The E in email is
Mhm.
evidence. Yep.
There you go.
You guys continue to stay in tune and stay connected to the Win Win family. Where it was a pleasure having you, Jackie, here.
Thank
And
you.
we look
Thank you.
forward to your return when 2023 comes
Yes.
out. Yes?
Yes.
We thank
And
you all. Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
I was going to say, and if you want to bring me back after you finished reading book 2, I'd
Yes.
be happy to come back on your show.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We
Mhm.
love it. We love it.
Okay.
Thank you all for tuning in today. We meet again next week, same time, same place, right here on the Win Win Live talk show and podcast at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Au revoir.